What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. In this video, we're going to be getting our storage bucket set up for all of the images that we're going to be storing in our Supabase backend. So we are going to be storing listings for images as well as profile images, as we can see here. So what you're going to want to do is get your Supabase dashboard opened up, and you're going to go to the storage section over here in the left panel. And we are going to get started by creating a new bucket. And this is going to be a public bucket. And the first one is going to be called avatars. So these are going to be for our profile images. So we'll go ahead and hit create there. And we are going to click into this bucket here. And we are going to set up a policy. So in the upper right, you can click policies. And here we'll say new policy. And we'll say get started quickly. And we're going to select this option here that says give users access to a folder only to authenticated users. So essentially, we are only going to allow authenticated users to access the storage buckets, whether it's to upload images or read images from the database and download them. So we're just going to say use template. And down here in this policy definition, guys, we are just going to make this easier and just say bucket underscore ID equals, and then whatever your bucket name is, in this case, mine's avatars, : text. And this just allows us to circumvent some of the annoying authentication policies and stuff. We would want to switch this in a production environment, but like I said, for purposes of testing and stuff, we're just going to leave this here as is. And we are going to want to be able to insert, update, and delete. And we could just say select as well. And then we're going to say review, and we are then going to say save policy. And we are going to do the exact same thing for our listing images bucket as well. So what we're going to do is go back to our storage and say new bucket, and we're going to call this listing underscore images, and we're going to say this is a public bucket. We're going to say create, and we're going to select the bucket here. We're going to go up to the upper right and say policies, new policy, get started quickly. The third option down, give users access to folder only to authenticated users, use this template. And we are going to just say bucket ID equals listing underscore images : text, review. We need to select all these guys, my bad. Review and save policy. And that's it for our backend setup for our storage buckets, guys. And the reason we create two separate buckets is for purposes of organization. Obviously, we want all our listing images to go to one folder, all of our avatars to go to another. So now that we have that set up in Supabase, let's go back to Xcode and get started with how to actually upload some images. So with Xcode opened up, we are going to go into our main app folder here. And we are going to create a new folder for our storage. And we are going to create a file called a storage manager. So we could say new Swift file, and this is going to be called storage manager. And this is essentially just going to be a file that is responsible for uploading our images. So it's basically like a storage service, you could think of it as. So we're going to call this a struct Supabase, storage manager. And we are going to import Supabase up at the top. And we are going to initialize our client the same way we always do with this setup code here. And guys, we're going to have two functions here. One to upload a profile photo. So we can say func upload profile photo for user. And this is going to be a user. And then we're going to pass in some image data here as well. And this is going to be async throws, and it's going to return a string. And I'll explain why here in a little bit. And then we can just create a to-do item here, and we can say upload listing photo as well. We don't have our listing model set up just yet, so we are going to come back to this once we get to the listing flow of our application. So let's just go ahead and start by implementing this function. So the first thing we're going to do, guys, is create a path. So we're going to say let path, and this is going to equal an interpolated property of our user.id, and we're going to say /avatar.jpg. So we want each profile photo to have its own unique path that is linked to our user ID. This makes finding the user's profile image easy if we ever want to update or delete it. And next up, we're going to say let full path equal try await client.storage.from, and we're going to look at our avatars bucket, and we're going to say .upload path and data. So we're going to pass in that image data. Let's see. I believe we don't actually use that data parameter. We just pass in the image data with our path. No, so this is actually path. The autocomplete messed us up there, or messed me up. And this is going to be data, image data. Sorry about that, guys. And then we're going to say .path. And let's go ahead and just add a print statement here. Debug full path is, and we'll say full path. So we can see that print statement in our console once we call this upload profile photo function to make sure everything is working. And then we're going to say let public URL, and we're going to then construct this public image URL that we're going to actually upload to our database. And I'll explain this constant here in a little bit, or this concept. We're going to say constants.project URL string /storage/v1/object/public/avatars/ and we're going to interpolate our path. So I do believe there's a better way to get this path from this upload functionality. I'm going to figure that out when we get to the upload listing photo section. We will find a better way to replace this and use the actual Supabase API to generate this public facing URL. And here we're just going to say return that public URL. So really quickly to explain how this works, guys, for those of you who don't know, when we store large files in our database, we want to store those in these storage buckets. And those are meant for and optimized for larger files. It could be images, videos, audio files, PDFs, whatever it may be. And in our database, to access that, we are going to have this pointer or this URL that points to the location of that image or larger file in our storage bucket. So if we go back to our user object, we can use Command-Shift-O to quickly open our user object. We have this profile image URL, and that's what we're going to be storing on our actual user table. We can't store the actual image data. The database is only meant for sort of lightweight data, like strings and numbers and stuff like that. So this is just going to serve as a pointer to the location of that image or that larger file in our storage bucket. So now that we have our upload profile photo function implemented, let's go ahead and hop back over to the profile view and see how we can actually implement the ability to upload and select a profile photo. So go ahead and open up your user profile view. And just to give you guys a reminder, this is what it's going to look like and this is how it's going to work. I am just going to click on this profile image or this avatar view. It's going to launch my photos picker and I'll be able to select any one of these images to then upload to my database. So before we actually get started with that functionality, I want us to create a reusable profile photo component or avatar view, as we're going to call it. And here's the reason for that. So basically, we're going to be reusing this avatar view in multiple places in the application, and we want to go ahead and make a reusable component for that. So in my listing detail view, I'm going to have another instance of my avatar view there. And we don't want to copy and paste the same code in multiple places. This is a clear scenario where we want to make a reusable component. So go up to your components folder here, and we're going to say new file. This is going to be a SwiftUI view. We're going to say next, and we are going to create something called an avatar view. And guys, this is a reusable component you can really use in any one of your applications that has a profile picture view or something like that, right? So here's our struct. We are going to initialize it with an image URL. We're going to say private let image URL, which is going to be an optional string. And then we're going to also have an optional profile image, which is going to be an image type, and that's going to be optional. And then we're going to have another property here for our tap handler. So this is going to be a handler just like this, or a closure. And we're going to make this optional as well. So this way we can handle tap gestures on our images and perform certain actions based on that. So now, guys, we are going to go and write out our init method. So we can just say init, and the autocomplete should handle that for us. And before we go any further here, let's go ahead and fix our preview. So what we can do is say that we want to just apply that fix, and we could just say nil across the board for now. And before we go any further, I want us to implement another Swift package called Kingfisher. And this helps us, it's actually a really convenient image library that allows us to work with remote images that come from APIs. So you guys could use async image, which is the native SwiftUI component for this, but I personally don't like it because it doesn't have built-in caching. And that is a huge necessary component for the performance optimization of our application. If we download this image, every time we see it again, we want to pull that from a cache instead of re-downloading it from our server, which would ultimately just lead to a less optimal application. So let's go ahead and go to our Swift package manager. So we're going to say File, Add Package Dependencies, and we are going to add this Kingfisher package. So to get the URL, I can just tell it to you guys here, or you could Google it. It's github.com/1vcat/kingfisher.git. So if you just Google Kingfisher GitHub, you should find it. Let's go ahead and say add package, and let's make sure we get this all set up and ready to go. And this is going to really help us out with working with remote images. So now that we have that, you should see it in your package dependencies right there. I'm going to go back to my avatar view and go up to the top and say import Kingfisher. And let's go ahead and hit Command B to try to build our project and make sure that everything is still working smoothly. And while we wait on that, I have an enum here that helps us customize the size of our avatar. And I'm going to paste that in a new file, and you guys could pause the video and type that out. So really quickly, guys, let's take a look at it. We're just going to go here and import foundation. And this allows us to customize the size of our avatar, and it's a very simple enum. So we're going to have a bunch of different cases: extra small, small, medium, large, and extra large. And if you guys want access to this, the source code is available for this entire project. The link for that is in the description. You can get access to all of the projects we do here on YouTube for a one-time fee of just $59. So check the link in the description if you want the source code for this project. So that's our avatar size. Next up, we're going to go back to our avatar view, and we're actually going to add that as an input component. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to say we also want a size. So we'll say private let size, which is avatar size. And in our init method, we're going to add a size parameter of avatar size. And then we can just say self.size is equal to that size. And here in our preview, we could say size and you could just say .medium or something. So now let's hop into our view body. And what we're going to do is create a group here, guys. And we're going to say if we have an image URL, so if let image URL, we're going to use something called a kf image, and we're going to pass in a URL using a string, which is that URL there. And then we're going to say .resizable, .scale to fill. And then we're going to say .frame is width and height, and we are going to use our size.dimension property. So we have a computed property on our avatar size enum, and that's how we set up the size of our image. So we are then going to give it a clip shape of a circle. So if the user has a profile image URL, we're going to render it using Kingfisher here, and that will be the image that they have stored remotely in our Supabase server. And we want to make this so that if the user doesn't have a profile image URL, we show something else, right? Like a placeholder image. And we also want to make it so that if they've selected an image, which is what this profile image would be, we show that instead, right? So here's the logic. We'll say else if let profile image, and then we'll say else here. So this is for the case when the user actually selects an image, and we want to override the image URL that we have here, right? So here, guys, we're going to say profile image, and we're going to say reuse all of those modifiers. And If none of those exist, then we're just going to show this placeholder image of person.circle.fill. And we might actually want to switch the order of these so that this would override this. So let's actually do that really quickly. We'll check to see first if they have selected a profile image and show that. If not, we'll show this. And then if they don't have any of those things, we'll show the placeholder image. So let's just go ahead and copy everything up to if let. And we can just paste that up at the top, add a new bracket. And then here we can say else if let that. And here we will just delete this stuff. So that's what our refactor should look like. So one more time, here's the logic. If the user has selected a profile image, we want to show that first, right? Because that's the most up-to-date thing. If they haven't and they have an image URL, they've uploaded an image to the server, then we want to show this, right? And if they don't have either of those things, we'll just show a placeholder image, right? Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. So next up, guys, we just need to add a tap gesture to this. So we'll say on tap gesture, and we'll say if let on tap, we'll just run that function that we pass in here. Okay, so we now have our reusable component. This is looking really good. So let's go back to our user profile view and replace this with our avatar view. So we're going to go here and say avatar view, and we're going to use this option here for our initializer. This is going to be current user.profile image URL. Size is going to be .medium, or we could even say large. We'll do nil on the profile image for now. And on tap gesture, guys, we can just hit enter on that closure. And we're going to have a state property up here. And this is going to be state private var. And we could say is presenting image picker bool is equal to false. And here we'll toggle that to true. So basically, if they tap on this profile image, that's how we are ultimately going to launch this image picker here. And then either on your list or your navigation stack, guys, we can add this modifier that says .photos picker is presented, and we're going to use this property here. And then we need to add a selection for that as well. So what we need to do is go to the top and import Photos UI. And we are going to add a couple properties here. So we only need two, and this is what they're going to be. Selected item and profile image, right? So now we can take this profile image and pass it in here. And let's highlight this and hit Control M to just clean that up a bit. So this component encapsulates all of our presentation logic, right? If the user has a profile image URL, we'll show that. If they've selected an image, we'll override it with that. And that is going to be tied to this property here. And we're going to go over right now how to actually select that image and ultimately upload it to our Supabase Storage Bucket. So what we're going to do next is go to the end of our struct here, and we're going to say private extension user profile view. And here is where we're going to create a function called on image selected. And this is going to be asynchronous. And first off, we're going to say guard let selected item, else return. And then we're going to have a do catch block, guys. And the first thing we're going to do is grab our data. So we're going to try to grab the image data by doing this. We're going to say guard let data equal try await selected item dot load transferable of type data dot self else return. And then we are going to, from there, construct a UI image using that image data. And then we're going to make sure that we have our current user. So we can actually do that up at the top. We can say guard let user equal user manager dot current user. And then we are going to say guard let, and we could actually call this image data. And we're going to say UI image.jpg data, and we're going to compress that image to make it smaller just so we're not uploading the full image size to Supabase. Your user could choose an extremely large image, and we want to make sure that we compress that because we're ultimately going to be shrinking it down to a much smaller size. And there's actually backend functionality you can implement to make sure you size your images to the exact pixelation that you want, just so you don't have unnecessarily large files in your backend. But we can cover that in the pro course when we get there. And then, guys, using all of that, All of that just to construct a actual SwiftUI image, right? And we're going to use this image data to actually call our Supabase Storage Manager function to upload our profile data. If at any point anything goes wrong, we can just add a print statement here. You could also add some sort of alert to tell your user, hey, something went wrong. And next up, guys, we're going to say let image URL equal try await our Supabase Storage Manager, or I think we just called it Storage Manager. And we could just say dot upload profile photo for our user with that image data, right? So that's going to actually trigger our function upload, and then we store the result of that in this image URL property. And then we would want to simply update our user managers or our current user's profile image. So right now we could simply say user manager dot current user dot profile image URL is equal to that image URL. But there's one more step that we have to implement here, and that's actually uploading this image URL to our user table as well. So we're going to write a function for that on our user manager. So right now this would set that property locally, but if you killed the app and restarted it because there's no server persistence, this would just not be there anymore on that current user. So we need to make sure we store that in our backend. So let's go ahead and do that now. We're going to hop into our user manager. And guys, we're actually going to go one layer deeper into our user service. And we are going to add a function here to update our user profile image URL. So we're going to have this function here. It's pretty simple. I'll just paste it in here. You guys can pause the video and type that out. Update profile image URL with this image URL. We're going to look at our user ID and then go to our users table and update our profile image URL. And to make sure we have the right user, we're going to use this equal statement and say, hey, go and get me the user where the ID field is equal to this currently logged in user ID, and then execute that function. So next up, let's go back to our user manager, and we are going to now implement that function like this. We are just going to say, update profile image URL. It's going to be an asynchronous function. We're going to call that user service function, and we're actually just going to update our current user profile image URL locally right from here. This is actually just called service. That's my bad. So the reason I like to do that, guys, is because it just updates the property locally instead of us having to actually refresh the current user with another API call. So it saves us an API call, ultimately improving the performance of our application. The more you reduce your API calls, the less it's going to cost you from a backend perspective, the less data it's going to have to download to your actual device. So that's going to save battery life and things like that. So we are going to update this locally here instead of doing a manual refresh from the database. So that's looking pretty good. Now, the last step is to go back to our user profile view and simply call that function here in place of this. We're going to say user manager dot update profile image URL and just pass that bad boy in there. Awesome, right? So this should work now, guys. So let's go ahead and time for the rubber to meet the road, as I like to say, and let's go ahead and test this out. Let's build our project, build and run your project actually with Command R or by hitting the play button up there. And we actually fail. So let's see, function is unused. If let on tap, oh, okay. We actually need to call our function with that constructor there. And sorry, we need to go back to our user profile view, go here and say await. And there's actually one more thing we have to do. I got a little ahead of myself there. We can now add a task to this with an ID of our selected item and say await on image selected. So this is going to execute this task every time this selected item value changes. And then that's when we just call this function here. So this is going to both replace the existing image in that avatar view and execute this upload function simultaneously. So now we should be able to run our app and see if this actually works. So let's make sure we get our console up here to, see if we're getting the correct print statements back and all that. And then that will actually wrap it up for this video, assuming this all goes well. So our application is launching. That's perfect. Our user loads there. It looks like our user data isn't loading, but that's okay for now. We can fix that later. So we see here that this loads beautifully. We can select this image. And look at that, guys. We got our full path back. So that is our user's ID /avatar.jpg. And next up, we should be able to go to Supabase, our dashboard, and we should go to our user table. So let's go to database, users, and my boy John here should now have a profile image URL. So check that out. Absolutely perfect. It successfully updated our user table as well. So next up, guys, let's go back to our simulator. Let's kill the app and let's relaunch it. Supabase Marketplace, I think this is it. And check that out, man. That is absolutely incredible. We got it done on the first try. Let's go. I love it when a plan comes together, man. So guys, that looks absolutely incredible. We are successfully downloading that image from our server and into this reusable avatar view. And you guys will see here, if I tap it again, I could update my profile image here as well. So that's looking incredible, guys. That's going to wrap it up for this video. In the next one, we are going to implement our listing creation and stuff like that. We're going to get our tab bar for our main interface and fix some of our UI issues here as well. But that lays the foundation for us to upload and download images from our storage bucket, which is absolutely incredible. It's a huge step in the right direction towards getting this application completed and polished. So thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.